So for months now, I've been telling everybody in my immediate circle that they should be reading the Boruto manga. And by and large, the response has been, don't really want to. However, every single person who has picked up the Boruto manga who was a genuine fan of the Naruto manga or Naruto anime has absolutely fallen in love with it. But one of the biggest reasons that people cite me when they tell me they don't want to read the Boruto manga is the fact that it's not about Naruto or Sasuke, which I guess I kind of understand. I mean, obviously you're gonna want to read stuff about your favorite characters, right? And the introduction of an entire new generation of ninjas can be a little bit daunting, and thus committing yourself to a manga that's as long as Boruto is, because Boruto is a pretty long manga nowadays. 80 chapters at 40 pages apiece is almost like 250 chapters. You're not gonna want to give that much time and effort to something that you may not enjoy. And while I guarantee you right now, if you're not reading the Boruto manga, if you pick it up, you will enjoy it if you're a fan of Naruto. Using the excuse of Naruto and Sasuke aren't in it simply doesn't work anymore. Because while Naruto and Sasuke may not currently play a massive role in Two Blue Vortex, there are definitely times that Naruto and Sasuke have played massive roles throughout Boruto's timeline, like the Momoshiki arc or the Ishiki arc. And while both Naruto and Sasuke got nerfed after the Ishiki arc and took a back seat so Kawaki, Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki could train up and become the main characters we needed them to be, it's been recently revealed in Chapter 5 of Two Blue Vortex that they're not going to stay on the sidelines for very long. Yeah, I've had the theory for a couple of months now that Naruto and Sasuke are only being temporarily sidelined. Kind of like Gojo in the Shibuya incident. When you create a character that's a walking plot device, in any fight they enter into, they'll be able to win, you have to sideline that character if they're not the main character. Because so long as that character exists and isn't indisposed in some way, the main character of the story is never going to get any plot development. And thus Naruto and Sasuke not only needed to lose some power, but also needed to be taken out of the story. Killing Naruto and Sasuke was never an option, because that would lead to a lot of lost money. Thus, the second more sensible option was taken, and that is put Naruto and Sasuke on the shelf. But not before you establish them as no longer strong enough to defend the world. Which means that while the main characters get stronger in their absence, they will surpass the strength of their previous generation. But there's a slight problem here, because there's a lot of people out there who want to see Naruto and Sasuke play pivotal roles in Boruto. In fact, I bet you there's tons of people out there who haven't watched all of Boruto or read all of Boruto who have not only seen Naruto in Baryon mode versus Ishiki, but also Naruto and Sasuke versus fused Momoshiki. Because when it comes down to it, these are some of the more hype moments in Boruto. And thus, if Naruto and Sasuke's involvement in key parts of Naruto was gonna make Boruto a lot of money, why wouldn't you keep doing that? Boruto has set up a somewhat interesting problem here. See, because while the end goal of the current arc is to save both Naruto and Sasuke, but more notably Sasuke, when Sasuke is freed from the tree that he's currently living in, he'll still be irrelevant in the power scheme. I mean, if he wasn't able to fight against Code, who got no-diffed by Boruto, then Sasuke isn't all that important when he's released. Which is where my line of thinking that if Sasuke is ever going to return to the story in any way that truly matters, he's gonna need a power-up. And more likely than not, that power-up is gonna come from the tree that he's currently locked in. As very notably, the parts of Sasuke that are trapped in this tree are the Rinnegan that he had destroyed and the hand that got cut off by Naruto. Well, I guess cut off is the wrong word, blown off. And thus, while I had no evidence to substantiate my point, I believe that if Sasuke was gonna be made stronger, there's no reason that Naruto shouldn't be made stronger. And while we've had theories on the channel for a long time that Naruto as an empty vessel was going to become the Jinchuriki of the new Ten Tails and rise as the new Sage of Six Paths, we've never necessarily had any evidence to substantiate that claim. We do now. See, because while Boruto and Naruto are no longer the main characters of the story, and to believe their return to graces will not make them stronger than the main characters of this story like Boruto, Sarada, or Kawaki, I do believe their involvement, even if it's simply tangential, will be massive for Boruto's success. And thus the idea of Naruto and Sasuke getting a buff after their most recent nerf has always made sense to me. And apparently, it's starting to make sense to Kishimoto, because Chapter 5 of Two Blue Vortex has all but confirmed that at least Naruto is getting stronger. But the real question is how? And ladies and gentlemen, mostly gentlemen, I know my demographics, I have the answer. Or at least I have a couple of possible answers, but when it comes down to possible answers in Boruto, I usually have the answer. So with no further ado, let's get into Naruto has returned as the strongest. But before we get into all that, guys, today, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you believe it, I make theories for shows that aren't just Boruto and Naruto on my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where I talk all anime that's not named Boruto or Naruto. If you want to hear me talk about these theories and so much more as it pertains to anime and manga, go ahead and follow my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happens in anime. This week, it's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Just did a big video breaking down everything that happened in Jump Festa. If you want to look like somebody who stays up all night to watch Jump Festa, guys, go ahead and meander on over into my merch store, Otaku's Anonymous anonymous.net, where you can pick up some of the greatest anime t-shirts, sweatshirts, and sticker packs known to man. So Naruto, you remember that guy, right? Bad haircut, dead fox, terrible father. That one! While many would argue that Naruto should play a more pivotal role in Boruto's timeline, I believe his role in Boruto has been sublime. In the beginning of Boruto, we get to see that Naruto is still the most powerful person on Earth, and when it comes down to defending Earth, he's the front lines. However, as the threats get bigger and badder, unfortunately, Naruto, as somebody using antiquated practices to battle against the Otsutsuki, slowly realizes he's kind of out of his league. And while Naruto never loses, because Naruto never loses, Naruto does have to give up the thing that makes him incredibly powerful, Kurama, to make sure that he can defend the Earth from the likes of Ishiki. But now, as it currently stands, Naruto is Kurama-less and without half of his chakra, as close to half of Naruto's chakra was destroyed in the Baryon mode collision. And thus Naruto, for all intents and purposes, is probably only about a fourth as powerful as he was pre-Baryon mode, which still probably at the time made him the most powerful person on Earth, but not nearly powerful enough to battle against Otsutsukis. Well, the most powerful person on Earth outside of Kara. But if Naruto is only about a quarter as strong as he used to be, why are we talking about him today? I mean, Naruto in his current state wouldn't stand a chance against Code, who Boruto looks at as fodder. So really, when it comes down to it, Naruto is irrelevant in the power scheme of Boruto. And for a while, that's kind of what we thought, because we haven't necessarily seen him fight since the Ishiki fight, because the only time we ever saw him get close to a fight is when Boruto and Kawaki fought, and Kawaki supposedly killed Boruto, which just shattered Naruto, which was a really cool moment. It was very humanizing to Naruto as a character. Because Naruto is so shattered by the possible loss of his only son, he's unable to fight against Code or Kawaki. However, in Chapter 5 of Two Blue Vortex, the four Shinju, those being the leader Shinju, who's most likely Jigen, the Sasuke Shinju, the Moegi Shinju, and the Bug Shinju, were all talking about their possible motivations and what made them unique. And what they were kind of identifying as their possible motivations, the things that gave them consciousness, was the people that they wanted to consume. And it appears as though the Shinju all want to consume the person who was closest to them in their previous life. So Moegi wants to consume Konohamaru, her childhood friend, and possible love interest. They're probably going to end up together as long as Konohamaru doesn't end up with Hanabi. But even if it's not a love interest, Moegi and Konohamaru are very close. The Sasuke Shinju wants to consume Sarada, his literal daughter. The Bug Shinju wants to consume Ada because Ada's charm Shinjutsu worked on Bug, so technically Bug loves Ada, even though it's a Shinjutsu. But still, there's love there. And while these three choices made a fair amount of sense, most compelling out of any of the choices that any of the Shinju made was the fact that the leader Shinju wanted to consume Naruto. Now, when the leader Shinju voiced the fact that they wanted to consume Naruto, it perplexed the other Shinju. As just a couple panels prior to this, they established the fact that they as Shinju should eat an Otsutsuki like Kawaki or Boruto, as they believe as Shinju that turning into a divine tree is the highest level of evolution. And thus when the leader Shinju said, I want to consume Naruto, everybody was like, why? He's not an Otsutsuki. To which the leader Shinju responds by saying, no, he's not. But I believe he's undergoing a different kind of evolution than he has prior. Which got people like me whipped up in a flurry. Because how is Naruto, who's been floating in a timeless dimension for the past 3 years, undergoing any kind of evolution? I mean, fundamentally, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not like Naruto, who can't move, is doing training in the Daikokuten like it's the hyperbolic chamber in DBZ. Naruto, for all intents and purposes, should be just as strong as the moment that he entered the Daikokuten. So is there a possibility that the leader of the Shinju is referring to the fact that Naruto was undergoing an evolution when he was put in the Daikokuten? Or is there something mystical about the Daikokuten and Naruto that's somehow making him stronger? Well, that's the answer that I'd like to believe. That somehow, because of Naruto's physiology, that the Daikokuten is making him stronger. Well, as I see it, there's 3 possibilities. And I see 2 of them to be fairly likely, and a third to be less likely, but still fun to talk about. Let's start with the least likely answer. See, this possible answer is predicated on another theory that we already have. And that theory mostly revolves around who is the leader Shinju. Well, some people say that the leader Shinju is Soegi. Other people, like myself, tend to believe that this leader of the Shinju is a vestige of Jigen's chakra manifested through the 10 tails. But what does any of that mean? Let's go over it super quickly. Essentially, it's important to note that in Chapter 4, the leader of the Shinju didn't appear until after the 10 tails disappeared. And if you remember in Chapter 4, the 10 tails that we saw was incredibly emaciated and pinned to the ground with chakra rods. These chakra rods suppressed the flow of chakra in the 10 tails and made it so it wouldn't be able to rebel against Code, who was slicing pieces off of it like it was a ham log to make a deli sandwich. However, instead of making a deli sandwich, Code was making claw grimes. This source of claw grimes was freed by the Bug Shinju, who was the first of the Shinju to show up, or possibly freed by the Sasuke or Moegi Shinju. We really don't know. What we do know, however, is that the Ten Tails is freed before the leader Shinju shows up. And since it appears as though that the same level of alterations were made to this juvenile Ten Tails as were to all of the claw grimes that were made from it, it's a possibility that when this Ten Tails was freed out from under those chakra rods, that it underwent a claw grime transformation. See, because while a claw grime to turn into a Shinju needs to bite somebody and steal their chakra and personality and abilities, the only reason this is possible is because of alterations done to the claw grimes by code. We're not entirely sure what those alterations are, but Boruto is talking about them in the early chapters of 2 Blue Vortex. And thus, so long as a modified claw grime, which is essentially just a Ten Tails clone, is able to get the chakra of somebody else into their system, they're able to manifest a Shinju after creating a tree. And thus, it's a possibility that the Ten Tails, which is modified just like all the other claw grimes when freed from the chakra rods, was able to undergo a Shinju transformation. And the Shinju transformation it was able to undergo turned it into a Shinju of Ishiki, or Jigen more accurately, as Jigen for thousands of years used the Ten Tails essentially like a battery, as anytime Jigen would need to be stabilized or needed additional chakra, he would go to the Ten Tails and sap it of chakra. And thus there's a fair amount of possibility that Jigen's lingering chakra existed in the Ten Tails, and thus the Ten Tails finally being able to have its chakra flow restored by coming out from under the chakra rods, and after being modified by code, would be able to undergo the same transformations as a claw grime biting into somebody and turning into a tree, which means the leader of the Shinju is not only Jigen, but also technically the Ten Tails. And like, more Ten Tails than anybody else, which would explain why it's the leader of the Shinju. And thus, as the literal manifestation of the Ten Tails, it would kind of make sense that this leader Shinju would be interested in Naruto, or specifically in the consumption of Naruto, as Naruto is the only current living Ten Tails Jinchuriki. And thus, there's the possibility that by this leader Shinju consuming Naruto, it could form into a Ten Tails Jinchuriki, but in reverse, and that Naruto in this essence would serve as the tailed beast in the situation, and since a perfect Jinchuriki is stronger than just the tailed beast itself, the consumption of Naruto would massively elevate the power of this leader Shinju. It's also a possibility that Naruto, as a former Ten Tails Jinchuriki, has Ten Tails chakra lingering in his body, and thus by him being consumed, it would allow this weakened juvenile Ten Tails to manifest into a true Ten Tails, which in essence would look like a higher level of evolution for this leader Shinju. And since evolution appears to be the most important thing to the Shinju, this would kind of make sense. Though I'm not super in love with this theory. I am really in love with the other two though. See, the theory that I believe to be genuinely the most possible is that Naruto is undergoing an evolution. I mean, that is exactly what the leader Shinju said. And while that evolution could have just been the leader Shinju saying that if they combined, that would be an evolution, I choose to believe that the Daikoku Ten is somehow supercharging Naruto. And I really only see two ways in which that could happen. The first and most possible way to me is that Naruto is being supercharged with nature energy. And after spending 3 years in the Daikoku Ten completely still, Naruto is brimming with nature energy. But how would this happen? It's not like Naruto was sitting there with his hands in his circle collecting nature energy. He was surprised by Kawaki. It's not like he was in his sage mode. Well, let me explain it. See, Naruto, after he loses Kurama in the battle against Ishiki, goes after Boruto when Boruto flees the village to go and fight Code. Well, Kawaki goes to fight Code, Boruto goes to get Kawaki, and so on and so forth. You get it. Everybody's leaving the village, and Naruto is chasing after all of them. But naturally, because Naruto is only about a quarter as strong as he used to be, Shikamaru, his Hokage's aide, is very worried about him. And Naruto says something slightly curious to Shikamaru in this moment. Specifically, he tells Shikamaru that I'm a much better sage than I used to be, which is interesting, because so far as we know, we've never seen Naruto training in sage mode since he learned it. But with Naruto telling Shikamaru this, it becomes apparent that Naruto, ever since the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, has been training in his sage mode. But this is slightly perplexing, because Naruto is and always has been a perfect sage. And usually when somebody is a perfect something, you assume the ceiling can't get much higher, especially when you consider the fact that him becoming a perfect sage wasn't all that hard for him. Like, I get that he had to train hard, but boy oh boy did he master it rather quickly. There's also the fact that him becoming a perfect sage appears to be genetically inevitable, as his father was also an easily acquired perfect sage. But Naruto becoming a perfect sage makes sense. I mean, you need 3 things to become a perfect sage. You need a strong body, a massive amount of chakra, and very precise chakra control. Naruto has all 3 of these things in spades. And because his chakra pool was so massive and his chakra control so precise, Naruto was able to achieve a level of sagedom that even his master, Jiraiya, wasn't able to achieve, as Jiraiya himself was not a perfect sage, though he was a teacher to 2 of them. But if Naruto mastered sagedom so easily back in the day, how has he become a better sage since? I mean, it's inarguable that Naruto has become stronger as an adult, but a lot of that strength appeared to be tied into Kurama. As Naruto in battles like his battle against Toneri has shown us that he's able to do things like separate Kurama from himself, so Kurama can fight as an independent avatar. And this kind of makes sense when you consider the fact that KCM2 was like 12 hours old when Naruto used it against Kaguya. There was a fair amount of room when it came down to Naruto being able to improve with Kurama, and thus any additional strength we saw from Naruto as an adult we believed came from Kurama. But in the same vein, Naruto has also used Kurama to become a better sage, as Naruto taught Kurama how to pull in nature energy and meld it with his own chakra to make Senjutsu chakra. And thus Naruto is able to put Kurama, who's usually sitting still inside of him, to use as kind of a passive way to be pulling in massive amounts of nature chakra while Naruto is still able to move. And in that sense, Kurama kind of acted like Ma and Pa for Jiraiya. And since for a long time there was really no reason for Kurama to move while inside Naruto, this was kind of an unlimited source of nature energy. It was broken. But Kurama is gone, and thus any advancements that Kurama gave Naruto in terms of sagedom are also gone. So any improvements that Naruto has made as a sage can't be tied to Kurama. And yet, Naruto is telling Shikamaru he's a better sage. So really when it comes down to it, I can only identify two ways in which Naruto would have become a better sage to the point where he believed that he could console Shikamaru with that fact. The first possibility is that Naruto has been training his Froggy Kumite, and thus by training his Froggy Kumite, Naruto is able to react and move at a speed thus previously unobtainable for him. The thing about that is that there's no reason for us to believe that Naruto wouldn't use these upgrades in conjunction with his KCM. And in fact, we know that Naruto uses Sage Mode in conjunction with his KCM at his highest level of fights. That's why he gets the cross pupil, as the combination of his Sage Mode sensory abilities and the speed granted to him through KCM allowed him to react and move at the highest possible speed. So it'd be weird for Naruto trying to console Shikamaru by saying, oh, don't worry, my Froggy Kumite reaction speed has gotten faster, because objectively, it's gotten slower. Because now that Naruto no longer has access to KCM, sure, his reaction time might be pretty quick with Froggy Kumite, his speed is substantially less. And thus, while Naruto might be able to react to something, he sure as hell wouldn't be able to dodge it. And thus, when it really comes down to it, the only way that I could see Naruto improving as a sage to the point where he felt it would be able to console Shikamaru is if he found a way to passively pull in nature chakra. See, as we all currently understand, Naruto isn't great at pulling in nature chakra. Well, at least Naruto's fighting style isn't super great for pulling in nature chakra, as Naruto's not like Hashirama. He's an up-in-your-face brawler. See, Hashirama was able to constantly pull in nature chakra because he stood atop his wooden constructs, which allowed him to stand completely still as he weaved his chakra into his wood. And thus Naruto, in order to make sure that he never ran out of nature chakra, often had to use shadow clones. Naruto would leave shadow clones far away from the battlefield who would be pulling in nature chakra, and whenever Naruto needed nature chakra, he would dissipate his shadow clones and the nature chakra would shoot right to it. And Naruto also had the secondary option of Kurama pulling in the chakra for him. But there's a slight problem with this. One, by using shadow clones, technically Naruto is at least cutting his chakra pool in half. And while for a long time that wasn't all that much of an issue, it now definitely is. There's also the other problem, which we talked about like it was a benefit earlier. See, Naruto now has the ability to separate Kurama from him. And even Kurama kind of has the ability to separate himself from Naruto. As we saw multiple times, Kurama having conversations with Kawaki while Naruto was asleep. And thus Kurama, since his gate is wide open, is often not inside of Naruto. And thus there's no real moments if Naruto is fighting at a high level for Naruto to tell Kurama to sit still and gather chakra. And thus Naruto had to find a way to replenish his nature chakra that didn't require either Kurama or splitting up his chakra pool. And fortunately for Naruto, there's a precedent for this kind of thing happening. And specifically, that precedent is Jugo's clan's Kekkei Genkai. The Kekkei Genkai that allows Jugo and the rest of his clansmen to pull in nature chakra always. Something that Kabuto and now Orochimaru are able to do because they were able to isolate that Kekkei Genkai and apply it to themselves. But Jugo's clan may not be the only people who are ever able to pull in nature chakra passively. In fact, we recently posted a video pontificating about the fact that Hashirama might have been tied to Jugo's clan, as Hashirama has a very interesting ability, and that ability is his wood release. And while a few people have been able to use wood release, only Hashirama and Madara have ever achieved a level inaccessible to everybody else. And the thing that comes along with this level is the ability to animate wood. Now, whether that be a wood golem, a wooden dragon, a 1,000-armed Kanon, or an entire forest growing towards an enemy, truly only Hashirama and kind of Madara have ever been able to achieve this level. Which is interesting because both Hashirama and Madara shared a Sage Mode, because Madara was able to steal Hashirama's Sage Mode. You remember. What's interesting about this is that technically Hashirama, by animating his wood, is animating an inanimate object. That is to say, Hashirama is breathing life into nature through his chakra, something previously thought only to be accessible to people who train in Ryuchi Cave. As Kabuto in his battle against Itachi and Sasuke showed us that he had the ability to create stone golems that could operate independent of Kabuto's control. And thus, if we do consider that Hashirama's wooden constructs are able to move on their own, that is to say without his control, then what Hashirama is doing is eerily similar to that of what Kabuto was doing. And the reason that's interesting is the fact that Jugo's clan's Kekkei Genkai is tied to Ryuchi Cave. We know this because Orochimaru, who was curious about Jugo's ability to pull in nature energy, went back to the source of this Kekkei Genkai and found that the source was Ryuchi Cave. And thus there's a possibility that Hashirama's Sage Mode wasn't even really a Sage Mode at all, rather a much stronger and controllable version of Jugo's Kekkei Genkai, which would be stronger and more controllable in Hashirama's hands because remember, he had one of the biggest chakra pools of all time, and thus constantly pulling in nature energy wouldn't fly him into a fury like the rest of Jugo's clan. On top of this, this constant influx of nature chakra that gets converted into Senjutsu chakra could explain Hashirama's healing factor, as Senjutsu chakra, and therefore by extension Sage modes, have healing properties. And guess who's got a Hashirama Cell arm? None other than Naruto. And therefore, if Madara is any indicator, Naruto should have technically been able to tap in to Hashirama's Sage Mode and the abilities that come along with that, which is why I've been saying for years that Naruto should technically have Wood release, especially when you consider the fact that he has Yin Yang release, and Moegi with Yin Yang release was able to figure out Wood release, which means that the way that Naruto possibly became a better sage is the ability to passively pull in nature chakra. And while Naruto's chakra pool is only about half as big as it was previously, that's still a fair amount of chakra. And thus there's a possibility in the 3 years that Naruto has spent in the Daikoku-ten, he's been passively pulling in nature chakra, becoming some kind of super sage. And here's the thing, even if hypothetically Naruto doesn't have the ability to passively pull in nature chakra, he's been sitting completely still for 3 years. Now I know a lot of you are gonna say, yeah, in a timeless dimension, and technically you're right, yes, a timeless dimension, but a timeless dimension does not mean that dimension is devoid of chakra, especially since that dimension is a creation of Ishiki's dojutsu. Thus it's fair to assume that a fair amount of chakra is required to keep that dimension dimensioning. And since all chakra is connected, there's really no reason for us to believe that Naruto wouldn't have the ability to absorb chakra even in a timeless dimension, as he's still alive, his cells are still alive, his chakra network is still alive. He and Hinata just aren't aging, which means over the course of the last 3 years, Naruto could just be absorbing chakra in a somewhat meditative state, which upon Naruto's release could springboard a Sage of Six Paths level like transformation, as 3 years of pulling in nature chakra with Naruto's efficiency would be insane. And thus Naruto telling Shikamaru that he's become a better sage could have actually just been foreshadowing. Because even though Naruto enters Sage Mode and runs off for Boruto, we never see him use any Sage Mode abilities. And thus this could have been a wink to the audience that Boruto was going to become a better sage. And the only thing better than a perfect sage is the Sage of Six Paths. Now, while I do technically believe this is the most possible answer for where Naruto's evolution is coming from, there is a second possible, somewhat, but just a little bit less likely answer. See, because the third possible answer to where Naruto's evolution is coming from is that Naruto is filling with Ishiki's energy. See, this theory is somewhat similar to the last one, but replaced nature energy with Ishiki's chakra, or energy. See, the Daikoku-ten, while technically being maintained by Kawaki currently, was created by Ishiki. Now, there is kind of an age-old argument as to whether or not pocket dimensions tied to dojutsus are created by the people who have those dojutsus, or if they always existed and the dojutsus just act as a way to get to those pocket dimensions. And if you really want the technical scientific answer to what that could possibly be, I would have to get into a somewhat rather complex conversation around string theory, and I don't really want to do that right now. So let's just assume that Ishiki created the Daikoku-ten and then maintained the Daikoku-ten for thousands of years. I mean, we know that Jigen has been alive for at least 2,000 years, and Ishiki has most likely been alive for thousands of years previous to Jigen, which means that the Daikoku-ten is a dimension that's been maintained and controlled by Ishiki for thousands of years. Therefore, there's a fair amount of chance that the Daikoku-ten is brimming with Ishiki's chakra. As if we're assuming that Ishiki created the Daikoku-ten, there was probably a fair amount of chakra involved in keeping it around. Though we're not really entirely sure on that. But I know what a lot of you are saying, but Nick, Ishiki's dead. And yes, he is. But so is Hagoromo. and Tamara, and both of them had enough chakra to be able to reach across dimensions and give chakra to living people. As Hamura was able to give chakra to Hinata, Hagoromo was able to give chakra to Naruto and Sasuke. And so one could say,
Well, yeah, of course Hagoromo could do it. He's the Sage of Six Paths.
Hamura wasn't, and he was only half Otsutsuki. And thus, it's not crazy to assume that one of the strongest Otsutsukis we've ever seen probably still has some chakra kicking around, even post-death. Especially if you're sitting in a dimension of his own creation. And thus, Naruto now, as either an empty vessel or possibly somebody who can passively pull in energy, is filling with Ishiki's chakra. And thus, Naruto, instead of brimming over with nature energy, is brimming over with Otsutsuki chakra, specifically Ishiki's. And this is why the leader Shinju, possibly created by the Ten Tails with the remnants of Ishiki's chakra still in its body, would be so interested in Naruto, as it's a possibility that if the leader Shinju was able to consume Naruto, who's now essentially a power bank of Ishiki's chakra, that once again, Ishiki would be essentially reborn, as we would have the Otsutsuki DNA from the Ten Tails meeting a massive source of Ishiki's chakra, which would serve pretty nicely as the return of one of Boruto's strongest villains. It would make a lot more sense narrative-wise as to why the leader Shinju wants to eat Naruto. Because the leader Shinju just wanted to eat Naruto because he's now a Super Sage. While it does make sense, he's in his spot on plot-wise. But what do you guys think? What do you believe will be Naruto's next evolution? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. I wonder what the next excuse for not reading Boruto will be when Naruto literally comes back as the next Sage of Six Paths.